How's it, everybody? Welcome to another episode of The Non-Fungibles. I can't believe we're already 8 episodes in, and we've had such great learning and insights from different decentralized applications to what's happening in the crypto world, NFTs, the metaverse. And we really hope that you are using this show to learn, engage, and to really grow your knowledge around the space. We've got a really great episode lined up for today, starting with the news with Lebo, where she's going to take you down the rabbit hole, looking at, continuing with this FTX saga that's encompassing all of our lives and really, bringing this dark cloud over crypto because of what has transpired. It's pretty shocking. After the news, we're going to hear from Cait on some of the latest dApps. There's some incredible dApps coming out, even just from Binance Token, the BNB token, which is probably one of the most solid tokens at the moment. Also looking at a metaverse called Upland, which is quite amazing as a space. You can buy actual physical landmarks over the real world in this Upland metaverse, and it's quite exciting what they're doing with gaming there. Then we'll also be going into our interview segment, where I'm going to interview Farzam Ehsani, who's the CEO and co-founder of Valor.com, Africa's largest crypto exchange by volumes, where we're going to be discussing the whole concept of decentralized versus centralized, which is better, and possibly, looking at where it's going in the future. Then we'll be going back to Lebo, talking about WTF NFT and some of these terms that we all want to know more about. Also giving away some awesome prizes to people that have joined our Discord. And then hearing from Cait around some of the crazy TikTok stuff that we've been doing. So it's going to be a great show. Stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy. I'll see you later. Over to you, Lebs.
Hey there, guys. It's Lebo once again, and here's this week's highlights. Some crazy monkey news. A gold fur Bored Ape just sold for 800 ETH. That's $927,000. I mean, seriously, guys, does anyone want my Curious George JPEG? Like, it's in mint condition, guys. Best quality. Considering the bear market we're in, that's wild. That's a lot of money. But anyway, for some more insane news, right? Apparently, Amazon has purchased the rights to an 8-episode miniseries from FTX, with the Russo brothers, the one and only Russo brothers, as the show directors. Now, if you don't remember, the Russo brothers directed the fan-favorite Avengers Endgame movie, right?
But this does put a smile on me.
Either way, this is a hot new development, and only time will tell what awaits us. I vote that the villain should be an SBF lookalike, right? Just for the fan service. Like, wouldn't that be great? Speaking of the one and only Bankman-Fried, this guy is still living it up in the Bahamas with his folks.
Oh, really?
Like, it's Christmas already. Like, who does this guy think he is?
Merry Crisis.
And while he has released an apology, essentially saying how sorry he is and how it's not our fault, like something out of Good Will Hunting. It's just a case of too little, too late, and screwing over customers. Like, just leave that to Apple. Like, chill. Speaking of our beloved Apple, let's look at some good news to finish off strong, right? So Apple has a lot of job openings for engineers in both the AR and the VR positions, right? Apple is delving into the metaverse, where 3D mixed reality will be at the center of their efforts. I'm all for more jobs, guys. In this economy, the more the better. But anyway, that's all you got from me this week, guys. Cait, what's good on that side?
Hey guys, it's Cait here with another flawless list of dApps for us to look at this week. This isn't it. Okay, first we're going to look at Art Gobblers. Now, this may look familiar, and you are right. Justin Roiland, the creator behind Rick and Morty, has got involved. According to their website, every art gobbler wants to gobble up the coolest art they can find. It's their greatest pleasure and the ultimate mark of status. In this world, you can glaminate, which is just their term for minting. So when your art gobbler gobbles art that is laminated onto the Art Gobblers page, that art is displayed in its belly gallery forever. Your gobbler will produce what is known as goo, which is an ERC20 Ethereum token. You can make art with their drawing tool and share it with the world for free. So that's kind of fun. You get to make your own art and it's displayed in your stomach. It's a bit weird, but I think it's very collaborative. I mean, who doesn't want to revisit like Microsoft Paint? Up next is a bit of a hot topic, Binance Token. This is the Binance Wallet dApp coin, whose CEO just swooped in to pick up the bones of the FTX carcass. It's survival of the fittest out here. Binance Coin, now known as BNB Coin, began as an ERC20 standard token built on the Ethereum blockchain. Remember, just now I said an ERC20 Ethereum token? What is it? Well, it stands for Ethereum Request for Comments, while the number 20 represents the unique number ID to distinguish the standard from others. ERC tokens are digital assets designed, issued, and used just like Bitcoin, except it runs only on the Ethereum blockchain. These tokens mainly rely on a specific smart contract that keeps track of the token's transactions. It's a native token of the Binance ecosystem that powers the BNB chain ecosystem. On to shake and what your mama gave ya. So there's this really cool app called Steppen where you move to earn. You get to select your fitness level or sneaker, be it a walker, a jogger, a runner, or a trainer. The game token is GST or Green Satoshi Token, and the governance token is GMT, which is the token used for mining Bitcoin. But hey, what's cooler than getting fit and earning cash? Donating. The spirit of giving. Steppen will donate its profit to combat climate change via burning carbon credit. Users can choose to donate their GST earnings, which will be swapped to a USD or a fiat token, and donate carbon credit buying or burning. So the donating part is voluntary, you don't have to do it, but 'tis the season, ya filthy animals. Lastly, we're going to take a look at a little thing called Upland. Upland is the largest virtual property strategy game mapped to the real world. It's a whole new world of gaming, where building your empire in a metaverse that's mapped to the real world, earning real world value, and having fun with virtual real estate is the way to win. Also, I like their website because they have a cute little llama everywhere on their website. Or is it an alpaca? According to their website, in Upland, you have easy access to become a digital landowner. You can build properties and shops, manufacture cars, and earn UPX tokens, which you can convert to cash while playing. And this is my favorite part. They've even partnered with EOS Authority and Climate Care to offset a year's worth of carbon emissions. That's being responsible. This is the game for Greta Thunberg. Good for the wallet, good for the kids. And that's all from me this week. I'm going to hand things over to the man with the plan. Oh man, what a man. Mick. Man, how many cups have I had today?
How's it, everybody? Welcome to the interview segment of today's show. And we are very fortunate to have one of the leaders of cryptocurrency and blockchain out of Africa, Mr. Farzam Ehsani, who is the CEO and co-founder at Vela.com. Vela.com is Africa's largest crypto exchange that allows customers to buy, sell, store, and transfer one of the widest selections of cryptocurrencies I know. It's got a great selection of crypto and it's very easy to use. Farzam was previously the blockchain lead at Rand Merchant Bank and the First Rand Group and was the inaugural chairperson of the South African Financial Blockchain Consortium. He previously worked at McKinsey & Co. in Johannesburg, at Deloitte Consulting in San Francisco, the Baha World Center in Haifa, and the United Nations in Nairobi. He also has a degree in economics at the University of California, Berkeley. Welcome to Farzam. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
And Farzam, let's before we get into a bit of today's discussion around governance in the metaverse, tell us a bit about your journey. How did you start Vela? How did you come up with this idea? Where did you see the opportunity? It's pretty incredible what you've built in just a few short years.
Thank you. Yeah, I heard about crypto probably 2012, 13, thought it was a scam at the time. Then really started getting into it in 2014, 15. Worked at the bank, brought it up there. There was a lot of governance kind of red tape there. And so long story short, decided to branch out and start Vela.com ourselves, myself and my co-founders.
And 2014, 2015, it must have been, that was very early days, how have you seen it evolved in that time? When Vela started to where Vela is now, I'm sure you've had a major change.
Yeah, so Valor started itself in 2018. Obviously, we've grown a lot. We've raised funding. Our volumes have grown. We're the largest exchange by volume by a pretty long shot now in Africa. But the narrative is still pretty much the same. You've got the cycles that there's a lot of hype and then kind of crashes, a lot of volatility still. A lot of people with the recent trauma and or turmoil, I would say, in the crypto markets right now, we're starting to see kind of the same narratives that are coming up from the skeptics, in early 2018. So I think it's interesting. Things have changed in a big way with a lot of adoption and a lot more corporates and banks thinking about this. A lot of banks having crypto teams now. But also it's kind of the same ultimate underlying phenomenon that we're building towards, which is creating a financial system that recognizes the oneness of the human race.
Love it. So that's very interesting is that, the narrative hasn't changed, but the actual applications have evolved. There's a lot more use cases. I think in those days, there probably wasn't many use cases, or, you could only get Bitcoin or Ethereum, or, there weren't much choice, and there wasn't anything to do with it. So, the actual ideology and what it's about remains steadfast. And now you can do a lot more with the technology.
Absolutely.
What are some of the numbers you guys are actually transacting in volumes now? You mentioned you're one of the biggest in Africa.
Yeah. So the previous, just a few days ago, I was looking at the numbers, and in a week, we've done about $100 million in volume of trading on the platform. So again, these are not the big numbers compared to large international exchanges, but some international exchanges, that's also the volumes that they are. But so we've been growing. I can remember when we first did, 50 Bitcoin. It was a huge thing for us, and now we're in tens of thousands. So there's been a really big increase. Our volumes, though, over the past, I would say, over the past week or two, have gone up tremendously given the turmoil. But what we do see in general is that when the prices start coming down, the volumes start coming down a little bit lower, and then the prices go up and they start going a bit higher. But overall, the trend has been upwards, and we anticipate that to continue.
Amazing. Wow. So even in this time where everything is there's this turmoil, and we'll get into that also in a moment, you're seeing volumes increase. Is that mainly from South African and African business, those volumes?
Both, actually. So, it's mostly on our South African pairs, our South African Rand pairs, but it's also, we have, dollar books where you can trade cryptocurrency, the USDC, which is the stable coin proxy for the US dollar. And so generally when we see a lot of volatility, we see the increase of volume. But I think also, what's happened recently, people have been kind of on the lookout for platforms that they can trust, where they can kind of execute their trades. And so that's one of the biggest things we talk internally about. What we have is trust to sell. That's what we sell. It's trust. If we lose that, we lose the entire business. And I think we're going to be talking a little about centralization and decentralization. So happy to elaborate on that also soon.
Yeah, so I think that's a great segue into what's happening in the world at the moment with this FTX saga. And every day you're hearing a new story that sounds more ridiculous. I was telling somebody the story today, and they were like, "You couldn't make this up in a movie." And I was like, "This is much stranger than fiction. What's going on?" Yeah. What are your thoughts on this whole FTX saga? And maybe if you could mention some of the stuff you've been chatting to, that thread that you wrote on Twitter, just explaining how a sex works actually.
Sure. Yeah. Just for the listeners that are new to this, I'm going to be explaining how a sex works with CEX, which is a centralized exchange, but not how sex works. That's for a different channel and that you'll be watching. But basically, so the first thing is, what are we? A SEX, or a centralized exchange, is an exchange where you actually have to trust the platform because you're actually depositing money, whether it's fiat currency, which is rands and dollars, or cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum. You're actually depositing those funds, funding your account, and handing over the ownership, not the ownership, I should say, the custodianship to the platform. The ownership remains yours. And that's exactly actually the issue that we've seen with FTX and what happened there. But effectively, once you you transfer your funds in, the custodianship transfers from yourself or any other platform to a crypto exchange. And then it's always pre-funded, which means you cannot do a trade unless you actually have the funds to prove that you can actually do that trade. So if you want to buy $100 worth of Bitcoin, you have to have $100 on the platform in the first place. The big thing, I think, for the purposes of this episode is that all customer funds are always held 1-for-1, 100% reserved in segregated custody accounts, never to be touched by the operations of a centralized exchange. Never. Regardless of whether the exchange is doing well or badly, you do not touch because it's not your money. And what allegedly seems to have happened in this case with FTX is that they actually dipped into the pool of client funds that they were meant to be safeguarding to the tune of close to $10 billion and actually lost those funds in various different ways, which is a travesty of the highest order because this is a breach of trust. It's actually antithetical to what crypto is actually all about, which is making sure that we're creating a system where you don't need to trust centralized institutions. But, coming to where Valor is and where we see ourselves going is that the decentralized world is growing and expanding and experimenting. And we think that's going to be very, very strong and very powerful for the world. We also do believe that there will be a requirement for trusted intermediaries still, where you can, if you so choose, use them to transact or to store your assets as you may wish. There are risks in both things, right? There are risks if you hold your own crypto assets. There are risks if you leave your crypto assets on an exchange. We can talk about those risks if we have some time. But the important thing is to understand what those risks are and act accordingly. So with the FTX drama, to be honest with you, we still need to find out exactly what happened. But what appears to have happened is a blatant kind of fraud almost, which is where people have actually lost their funds that were meant to be held for them that were actually not there.
So the central exchange should never actually touch the customer's funds. Whereas if you actually put your funds into a bank, the bank may loan out your funds.
Great question.
The bank has the right to loan out those funds.
Great question. So a lot of people are talking about a run on a crypto exchange, right? One of the fundamentals of a bank is a bank actually takes your money and then it lends it out. It keeps a fraction of it and it lends it out to other people. So if everybody goes to a bank and wants to withdraw all their money at the same time, it's impossible. They do not have the liquidity for that. That is what is called a run on the bank, right? But you have things like, insurance for that, or like government insurance that say, listen, we insure your funds that they're going to be there. So don't run on the bank, because that's a kind of feature, I should say, not a feature because it's actually not such a good thing, but it's an element, it's a characteristic of the fractional reserve banking system. But at a crypto exchange, we are not banks. We do not have licenses to take your money and to go and lend it out without your permission. So at Valor, and I'm hoping all the other crypto exchanges that we still don't know fully about, I hope they're doing that. And what I've been vocal about is that if you have any doubts about your funds on any exchange, including Valor, the only way for you to test whether your funds are actually there is to withdraw them. Yeah, so I think let's talk a little bit about the risks of a centralized exchange. I think that's probably very helpful to listeners. So probably I would say 3 buckets of main risks that you're dealing with is, number one is if the people that are running the exchange just blatantly run off with your money, which is what seems to have happened with FTX, right? Or when I say run off your money, just like
used it or taken it.
Used it, touched it, shouldn't have been doing it. Just, that's the first thing. Yeah. Second thing is that they're actually holding your funds very well and they're custodying it in segregated accounts. But then there's a malicious external actor that compromises the platform through a hack, and we've heard about situations like that. The third thing I would say is that there are operational issues, right? And this is actually what I believe is what happened at ICE3X, since you brought it up, which is that they had X amount of money in their blockchain wallets, but what they actually had on their ledger, which is what they owed their liabilities to their customers or what they were holding in trust for their customers, didn't match up with what they actually had in the vault, so to speak. And so that could have been, some type of operational error. If it was malicious, then I would put it into the first bucket that I just talked about. So those are the three kind of big bucket areas that people need to know about. And like even at Valor, we try to put in places things to mitigate all of those. But those risks exist at Valor, at Coinbase, at Binance, at any centralized exchange. So if anybody tells you that there are no risks with holding your funds with them, they're not telling you the truth. There are always risks. The question is, what are the risks and how do you mitigate against them?
Yes. And so I think that's a very good point, is that, the need that having that level of transparency is so important, when holding your funds in a central exchange. You don't want to be in a central exchange that's telling you there are no risks and you're 100% safe. And maybe let's just talk a little bit about what are some of the exciting things coming at Valor before we get into the metaverse stuff.
There's a whole bunch of stuff that we're working on. We've got our heads down. We actually just launched in Zambia. So this is actually our first major foray into a new country. And that's quite a big milestone for us, because the aspiration and what we've been able to achieve is that from a Zambian perspective, the platform is completely native. So it's a Zambian kwacha, it's everything priced in Zambian kwacha, et cetera, right? And then in South Africa, obviously, it's a South African rand. And then in other places, it's dollars right now. So we're looking at expanding into further countries across Africa and beyond as well. We've been looking at India for quite some time. There are some challenges there, as there are in other African nations. But so the geographical scope is something that we're looking at. And then we're also looking at a whole bunch of new products and services for our customers, providing potentially some type of leverage for some sophisticated traders. Not too much, because then it becomes very dangerous. But for capital allocation and capital efficiency requirements, some of our sophisticated traders have been asking for things like that. And then a few other things that are in the pipelines, but we always like to kind of announce them once they're in production.
And what's adoption like in Africa? Are you seeing, in Zambia, is there a big adoption of crypto? A lot of what I've seen from statistics is that there's high adoption rates across Africa because of our mobile penetration. What are you seeing on the ground, like when you open the exchange in Zambia?
Yeah, I think all countries around the world, particularly in Zambia, there's a niche group of very sophisticated crypto traders, right? Then you kind of go out from that nucleus, and then there are people that are interested and may have bought some. And then you have the rest of the population that doesn't have any, and then to the extreme think it's a complete scam as well. So we see that kind of that nucleus is growing and kind of pushing out into the broader population. Obviously, there are setbacks when you have situations like we just had with FTX, where people kind of feel vindicated of not having touched that, and the industry has to kind of reckon with itself and say we need to try to stop that, and quite honestly through things like better regulation sometimes, right? And there are, to answer your original question, there's a lot of surveys that show that there are huge percentages of Africa that's into crypto. I always take those things with a little grain of salt. I don't know kind of how big the sample size is, etc. But without a doubt, where we are right now is a far cry from where we are when Valor started, 4.5 years ago.
So, just going a little bit on, diving a bit deeper into this around proof of reserves. You've seen CZ brought it up, and a lot of the exchanges now are reporting on proof of reserves. Do you want to just explain what that is? And do you think it's important to do that type of thing?
Yeah. So proof of reserves is basically talking to my earlier point, which is how can an exchange that has custodianship over these assets prove to the public and to their customers that their assets are actually there and they haven't been dipped into by the exchange or haven't been touched by the exchange. The challenge with this is that ultimately there's always some sort of need for trust, right? What some of the exchanges have come out and said is that they've said, this is our blockchain assets. These are our addresses. Go onto the blockchain and look to see, how many assets we have. We have so many assets. But that's actually meaningless, because what you really want to know about is, okay, you've got that many assets, but how much do you have in custody for your customers? And does the amount in custody match the amount of assets? Now, to show the liability side, which is kind of the asset, the custody, what you have in custody, because it exists on a centralized ledger, the only way to actually show that to the world is you can start getting into some cryptographic things like a Merkle tree proof of reserves. I'm not going to go into the technicalities of that, but that's meant to be in a way that people could come and check to see if their balances are actually calculated and in this kind of cryptographic hash, so to speak. But ultimately, you're depending on, if not the exchange, an external third-party auditor to come and say, listen, we've kind of looked at the books. We're seeing that what we see on the asset side is equal to what's happening on the custody side, so we're all good. But again, now you're trusting the auditor. Have auditors ever been wrong? Yes. Have they ever been bought out? Absolutely, right? So ultimately, you are trusting. So if you have any reason to doubt, then you should not be just trusting what people are putting out there. Because if there is a malicious actor, they will find a way to couch things in a way to show, oh, look, everything looks fine, when actually it isn't, right? So it does ultimately come down to trust, no matter which way you look at it. So it's good to, I think, educate yourself about how to hold custody yourself, on your own hardware wallet if you want to. But again, please understand the risks there, because if you lose your keys there, you can't reset your password. And if you lost your keys for life, or if you get compromised or all the other things, right? So at Valor, we have a dedicated cybersecurity team, etc., whose 100% job is to take care of those assets and make sure that we're defending against attackers. So there's always risks. You just need to understand.
And, what's the difference between a decentralized exchange and a centralized exchange? And
Great question. So a centralized exchange is, again, as I mentioned, you're handing over your funds to a group of people effectively to manage those funds for you. With a decentralized exchange, you're actually engaging with protocols. You're engaging with the internet. You're actually still holding on to your own assets and engaging with this decentralized exchange basically on a peer-to-peer level. So there is no trusted intermediary that is holding on to your assets for you. So there's pros and cons to that. Right now, obviously, you don't get decentralized exchanges aren't as highly performant as centralized exchanges are. But at the same time, they don't hold your funds like centralized exchanges do. So it depends on what you're looking for. Some of the prices and the fees on centralized exchanges can be a little bit higher, as an example. But again, you need to kind of look into it, which decentralized exchange you're looking at, which centralized exchange you're looking at the pricing, looking at the risks that are involved, and then making a decision on what is right for you. And I'm a very firm believer that there isn't one right answer for everybody in the world. It depends on how technically savvy you are, how well you understand your risks, how well you can custody your own assets. And once you kind of understand that, then you can start making a decision for yourself. So it does require some education.
So I mean, I think that's so it's the great thing about crypto is that you have these options and that you have these different routes to market and different ways of storing your assets. And depending on, like you said, it's your how do you want to just have your assets stored for you in a safe way by a trusted partner, or do you want to hold your keys and hold your crypto yourself with that risk of possibly losing that device or losing those keys, and then they're gone forever into the Netherlands. I think these are all such great. All of these options are going to be available in the metaverse, and you're going to be able to decide: do you want to keep, your funds with a custodial body in the metaverse, or do you want to move them? And I think a lot of this discussion is going to play a big part in governance in the metaverse. And, how will the metaverse be governed? How will these decisions about centralization or decentralization take hold? What are your thoughts about, centralized or decentralized metaverses? I mean, you've got the centralized players like Meta and Roblox and Fortnite and Minecraft, which have a very different business model to a crypto business model or to a decentralized business model.
Yeah, I think they all have their place. But I think, the more and more when you look at society, you start seeing that the idea of trust of large institution is being eroded, right? which is one of the reasons we started Valor, because okay, there's an opportunity to actually reestablish that, or at least try to reestablish that in a way. So when I think it comes to the metaverse, I think the narrative is no different in the sense that you will have centralized parties that will have their own rules and regulations and kind of what you can and can't do on those platforms, and where you're also at the mercy of being on that platform, which is if they don't like you for whatever reason, they can kick you off, and you literally have no recourse to that. Versus the kind of a decentralized world where you have a little bit more self-sovereignty. You can custody your own assets. Nobody can kind of just kick you off willy-nilly without any rationale that they either need to prove to you or not, right? So I think, again, there are places for both. We're still in the very nascent stages of kind of governance for decentralized protocols, I still think. And so I think as we start experimenting, we'll start to see, by the way, a lot of projects fail, but we'll also start to see a lot of beautiful and innovative ideas and governance models start emerging. I still think we're still very early in that entire process. But for people that are just coming into this space, the metaverse or crypto in general or Web3, I think it's really good to understand that we're still so volatile. It was still so early. There's still in that kind of Cambrian explosion of different ideas that we are bound to see a lot of failure of a lot of coins, of a lot of ideas, a lot of governance structures. But from this, I believe there will be some very powerful models for society at large.
Yeah, thanks for that. I totally agree. I think it's still so early. I mean, you're hearing about different DAOs, lots of different DAO models that, and even like Decentralized is a metaverse. They're a complete DAO. And a lot of those decisions are being made, for the direction of the company through that DAO, which I think is quite interesting. And also, there's I don't know if you know Gala Games. Gala Games has a interesting governance model where some of the voting actually happens for node owners. So if you own a node, I own a node, and I get these votes to make all the time on the structure of the company, which is quite interesting because I'm not deeply involved in the day-to-day, but then I'll get a vote like, do I want to allow this game to join the platform?
Yeah,
and I can make a decision that actually has quite a strong weighting in the future of that of the platform. So I think I totally agree. It's so nascent and it's so new that the people that are engaging with it now have the opportunity to actually lead the space and to create the future we want to see in these spaces, in these environments.
And I think, Mick, what we might also see, and I think we're already starting to see it in some cases, is actually a hybrid of the two, which is to say, okay, cool, it's a decentralized kind of ecosystem, but those decentralized kind of voters might say, but we actually vote for this group of people to kind of have a say on X, Y, and Z, right? And that they can be changed if needed, but that, if there needs to be kind of a gatekeeper from a human perspective, that could be there for different reasons, right? So I think we're seeing the full gamut, which is completely centralized to completely decentralized, and then kind of somewhere in between along that spectrum as well.
Yeah, and I think that's actually, if you think about it, that's how the world actually works. Because we were just having a discussion with somebody earlier around, if you think about a large-scale organization, there's the central body of the organization, but then because the organization becomes so big, each of those pockets in those different territories or those different regions become like their own central organization. But then the whole organization is becoming a bit more decentralized because the central body can't make the final decision. They have to collaborate and coordinate with the different decentralized parts of the organization, which are big little central bodies, to help make a global decision across the board.
Democracy itself is meant to be, the idea is that it's a decentralized voting process by everybody has a vote, and that you put into place some people that will kind of act on your behalf in some way, and if you're not happy with them, then it goes back to the decentralized voters, which is the populace, to vote in and out. Obviously it's not that simple, and there's lots of kind of corruption that happens along the way, but I think the ideas are very similar. It's
like what Ray Dalio says, it's this history repeating itself in these patterns, repeating themselves. But now with blockchain technology, it's just a new way of allowing the pattern to evolve and to take a lot of that friction out of the system, a lot of that corruption out through the use of a smart contract.
The last thing I'll say, and then I need to run, is that, this idea of decentralized and centralized isn't something that's new. Like if you go back, I think we're looking at a pendulum. If you go back in time where we had our own bearer instruments, which is like gold and, things of that nature, or shells or salts or whatever it may be, people held these themselves, put them under their beds or whatever it may be. And then over time, they said, listen, I actually don't want to have the custody of this myself. Let me go to a centralized goldsmith, give my gold to them, let them give me a depository receipt. And then we started getting into centralized institutions like banks. And then we started saying, well, we don't really like all the power that these banks have, so let's actually start decentralizing. And we're trying to get really decentralized. And then I think what we're seeing is also, as part of that process, people are saying, wait a minute, this is getting way too much. I don't have to be responsible for all of my assets. So then we start going back into somewhat centralized. So I think this kind of a pendulum and an accordion, so to speak, that we've seen it over time. And cryptocurrency and crypto is just another technology that allows for it in a very powerful way in the digital space, right? So it's that's what makes it so special.
Yeah, no, awesome. Yeah, so it's centralized or decentralized. We're going to see it play out in the next couple of years, and a combination of both. As you said, Farzam, thanks so much for your time. And if anyone wants to find you, where's the best places to reach you or to follow
Best
you?
on Twitter, Farzam Ehsani. My first name and last name is my handle. DMs are always open, so feel free to get in touch.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, and we'll catch you in the metaverse in Ubuntu land hopefully soon.
Thanks so much. Lovely seeing you.
Hey guys, so we all remember how golf and Sun City go hand in hand, right? At Africarare, we had the pleasure of building this space for the sheer fun of it. For all those attending the Nedbank Golf Challenge live, it was open to the public and free to enter. We had a treasure hunt with prizes, interactions with guests from all over the world, and there was even a live stream screen. Additionally, we hosted a number of daily quizzes where people could walk away with dope giveaways like $5,000 cash. It was a delicious setup. And that's our metaverse lowdown from Africarare.
It's quite cool to see where the technology is going from here, where it can go.
I mean, like, people aren't going to be meeting in real life anymore. They're probably going to be meeting in the metaverse.
No, bitch! No, you're not going to call me no bitch, because I'm not none of these ones. I'm going to whoop your ass, I'm not none of them. So you...
Fact: Africa is home to at least 5 record-holding animals. The world's largest land mammal, the African elephant. The world's fastest land animal, the cheetah. The world's largest primate, a gorilla. And the world's largest reptile, the Nile crocodile. Finally, the world's tallest mammal, the giraffe.
Hey guys, it's Lebo, and once again, it's time for us to share the NFT love. And the winners of the Discord raffle are in. Drum roll, please. Congratulations to our winners. Each of you will be receiving an allow list role. Want to get involved and win? Do yourself a favor. Go join our Discord and you could strike it lucky simply for joining. Ciao.
So there you have it. Another great show. Episode 8 is done. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you haven't seen our previous episodes, please make sure to go and watch some of the earlier episodes. You will learn a lot about decentralized applications. You'll learn from some great thought leaders, as well as what some of these terms mean. So you can go back and check our YouTube channel, like and subscribe if you haven't already to our page. Make sure to subscribe to YouTube. Follow us on different social media. Stay safe out there, stay educated, and we'll see you next show for episode 9. Keep smiling and let's future-proof Africa together. Cheers.